CityCast Pittsburgh is coming to you today, care of the Pittsburgh Opera, presenting Puccini's enduring tale of love and heartbreak, Madama Butterfly. The final performances are this Friday and Sunday, and you can experience the tragic love story of Cho-Cho-san and Lieutenant Pinkerton like never before. The images that the opera is sharing from this show, they are so vibrant and beautiful. And of course, it is all paired with Puccini's stunning music. Don't miss out. Catch the show this weekend before it's gone. Learn more at pittsburghopera.org/citycast. Pittsburgh Opera, where can we take you?
Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, everyone knows John Fetterman here in Western Pennsylvania. He was the mayor of Braddock, got a bunch of tattoos on his arm with the dates that people were murdered there. He rose to lieutenant governor under Tom Wolf, and now he's a U.S. senator, in part because he rode a big progressive wave. But now, I don't know. He doesn't seem all that progressive anymore. And he's coming back to Pittsburgh this weekend to promote Republican Dave McCormick's new personal growth book. I'm teaming up with CityCast Philly's Matt Katz and reporter Julia Taruso with the Philadelphia Inquirer to talk about Fetterman's at least perceived shift to the right and what that means for us here in Pennsylvania. It's Thursday, March 27th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about.
Hey, Megan. Hey, Julia. Thanks for being on both of our shows today.
Hey.
Hey, Matt. Julia, hi.
Hi.
So, Fetterman, let's start, I guess, at his Senate run, because he's running for office and he has a stroke while he's campaigning. His recovery was such a big deal at the time, the use of assisted devices. He wins, and pretty quickly he's then hospitalized for depression. That's all back in 2022, 2023. I guess first, maybe just a health update. Julia, how is John doing right now?
I mean, since Senator Fetterman came back after that treatment for depression, you know, when you're on the Hill and you're interviewing senators, you can have a lot of quick conversations with a lot of noise in the background. And a lingering issue for him has been being able to have those conversations with background noise. So he does carry around like an iPad that transcribes questions in real time, but seeing where he was post-stroke and during, you know, when he was going through depression treatment, it seems like he's doing well. He can have those conversations. He's often doing national interviews and other interviews. All signs point to, you know, he's doing well, although I have not gotten to personally ask him questions about his health. So that's all based on kind of what I've observed and what's been reported.
And we're actually going to return to that, why you haven't been able to ask him those questions. But yeah, I mean, I think it's worth saying, like, it was kind of a silver lining in those early days. You know, he became this person talking about how important it was to normalize this stuff, like closed captioning, for example, as a professional tool, or getting treatment for your mental health. It was something that it felt like he and his family, they handled those conversations really, really well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was, and he got a lot of feedback, you know, from people who have had health challenges, be it a stroke or just normalizing depression and treatment for depression. And, you know, he did a lot of interviews being very candid about how dark things were and the importance of seeking help.
Yeah, it really raised his profile, too, in Washington, just the unusual nature of his health circumstance, the transparency around it. And then, of course, physically, his presence in the Senate with the hoodie and the shorts is also something that's like become a nationally known thing.
Definitely.
But it's really, at least from my perspective, it's really been since Trump's election. And you mentioned a couple times national interviews. I mean, Julia, this guy is everywhere talking politics, talking Trump, and there's, from my perspective and a lot of people's perspective, been something of a political change in the senator. I mean, I'm going to run through some of this stuff real quick just to catch us up. He was the first Senate Democrat to visit Trump after the election. He has voted for 10 of Trump's nominees, tied for the most among Democrats. Was the only Democrat to vote for Attorney General Pam Bondi, which is a very significant vote. He voted for a Republican immigration law that's intended to lead to more immigrants incarcerated and deported. He voted for the Republican budget. He said the Democrats were being absurd by voting against it and potentially shutting down the government. He has even flirted with Trump's idea of taking over Greenland. And then he has just been staunchly pro-Israel, more so than maybe any other national elected figure in his party. He seemed to almost endorse the idea of U.S. troops in Gaza. So Fetterman, as we knew him as a lieutenant governor, as I remember reading about him when he was mayor of Braddock, was something of a progressive figure. His main issue was legalizing cannabis. He was aligned, if not officially, but with the Bernie Sanders AOC wing of the party. So has his ideology changed, or his political calculus, or is it something else?
I think you used the word unusual a little bit ago. As long as John Fetterman has been on our political radar, he's always presented himself as not your typical politician, and I think people can argue about whether that's true. He was a mayor, he was a lieutenant governor, he became a senator. But in this moment, what's really rankling members of his party is he's not behaving like a typical Democrat. So he ran for Senate saying he wasn't going to be another Joe Manchin, meaning, he wasn't going to be this in the middle vote.
The senator from West Virginia who gets a lot of heat for voting with Republicans on occasion.
Yes. When it comes to voting record, I think there were several Democrats in the Senate who voted for some of Trump's cabinet picks. Pam Bondi was a surprising one to a lot of people I talked to, because she was President Trump's attorney when he was trying to overturn the results of Pennsylvania's election results. I think what we're getting now, as you ran down kind of that list of things, is a lot of people who are waiting to see, is this Senator Fetterman trying to build up relationships and be bipartisan and maybe get something for it? But I think what we're seeing is as less of that has happened, and as more of these bullet points pile up, more critics starting to say, are you who you said you were going to be in the Senate?
Yeah.
And who the critics are has been interesting to see play out, especially here recently. Connor Lamb has been popping off about this. He was the former Democratic congressman who ran against Fetterman in the primary to become a senator. That was back in 2022. Lamb was painted at the time as being pretty moderate, maybe to his detriment. He's got that military background, definitely more soft-spoken than John. But now, over here at least, we're seeing people on the internet apologizing to Connor Lamb, saying things like, I feel duped. I regret not voting for you. I'm so sorry, bro. I swear, my bad. What has it been like for you, Julia, to see this swing so quickly, I think, just in the last 2 years?
Yeah. And then, Connor Lamb kind of came into the conversation because he was defending the very progressive New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez after Senator Fetterman made fun of her for saying that the Democrats should have voted not to advance a bill and shut down the government.
And she's since said she regrets supporting Fetterman too.
And she's one of the Connor Lamb apology tour members. It's been really interesting. And I think there's always some hesitancy among Democrats to criticize one of their own. John Fetterman is now the senior senator for Pennsylvania.
Which is wild after 18 years with Bob Casey, that the senior member has 2 years on his next in line.
Yes. And then we have Senator McCormick, who just started in January. So a very new pair of senators. But it's been quite the thing to watch. And I think, again, just seeing Lamb, who is a relative moderate, Ocasio-Cortez, who's progressive, it seems like he's kind of getting criticism from both wings of the party, which I think has a little bit to do with his tenor. He's always been someone who says what he thinks and says it in the voice he thinks it in. And I've talked to a lot of people who behind the scenes are just kind of wondering, like, kind of, why do you have to be so mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's how he ratchets it up to 100 and is just such a outspoken critic of his own party in a moment when Democrats are trying to figure out what their next move is going to be.
And you interviewed Connor Lamb for a story in the last week or so, right? And that appeared to have gotten a lot of attention. I mean, Washington is, in the political world, is really preoccupied with this Fetterman situation.
Yeah, I think a clear question always is like, is Twitter and Washington preoccupied? Yes. Are actual voters on the ground, feeling frustrated or any sort of way about Senator Fetterman? I mean, when you look at polling, voters like bipartisanship. They want Washington to work. They want people to work together. But it's also a moment when I think a lot of Democrats are frustrated with how the party's responding to Trump, and Fetterman is like from their perspective, enemy number one when it comes to that, or not being forceful enough.
I mean, is some of that just like branding on Fetterman's part? Like, does he just like to be contrarian? Because like that is kind of what we experienced over in Western Pennsylvania for a while. And he's a little quick-tempered, but he was also softened in a variety of ways by the folks around him, certainly by his wife, Giselle, who founded a nonprofit here. I mean, is it a good thing for him, I guess, from his perspective, to come off this way? Or is it like, is all attention good attention?
That's a great question. I think judging by the number of conversations he wants to be in and the number of, national interviews he's doing, he wants to be part of every conversation, and he thinks it's a good thing. And that's totally true that, his brand has always been kind of bold, brash, tell it like it is. And Democrats have looked to him as someone who can help them do better with working class voters, with rural voters, with voters who they're losing right now. So I think there is definitely part of it where it's his brand and he's never held back, and why start now?
Today's episode is supported by History Unerased, a provider of LGBTQ inclusive curriculums. How would your life have changed if you'd learned about influential LGBTQ figures in school? History Unerased helps teachers tell a more complete story of our nation's history. They say they're the country's leading group when it comes to bringing LGBTQ history into schools, something that's really important at a time when LGBTQ rights are under attack. And you can support this work by showing up to Yins Can't Erase Us. History Unerased is hosting an afternoon of community and celebration on Saturday, April 5th at 5801 in Point Breeze. The party will include food, drinks, music, trivia, and a giveaway, plus an appearance from Danny Roberts from the New Orleans season of MTV's The Real World. Get your tickets on their website, it's unerase.org, and then click on the supporters tab to buy your ticket and contribute to a more inclusive future for us all.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
I'm starting to wonder if there's, though, a bit of more of a show horse situation here than a workhorse. So when you're down in Washington, because you go often down there to cover the local delegation, and you see the senator walking around in shorts and hoodies, what happens when you roll up to talk to him? Because you had tweeted he'd stopped granting interviews to the Inquirer, the local paper, the largest paper in his state, even though he gives all these national interviews all the time. And then, so he's not talking to you. And then at the same time, he's apparently missed a lot of votes, more than any other senator by a tally that we did, any other senator or congressional representative from our area in Philly. And he's not spent a lot of time in Pennsylvania either. So Tell me about your access to him and what that might indicate about how much he's really paying attention to what's happening locally and what people are feeling and thinking locally as opposed to, the CNN cameras.
Yeah, I've requested interviews with him for over a year and have not been granted one.
Do they answer the emails? Like, do they tell you no in a polite way, or do they just let it dangle?
That's a great reporter question. I am so curious.
It tells you a lot about their office.
It does.
And if they're going to do it to a reporter, how they might treat a constituent. I think it matters a lot for the public.
I do not get answers, period. Look, I'm one reporter of many. He has done interviews with some other Pennsylvania publications, but he's certainly not doing them frequently. And I think more to the point is the amount of time he spends in Pennsylvania, at least doing public events, meeting with constituents. I mean, if you remove a couple visits during the presidential election, I can't recall a constituent trip that the senator has done to Philadelphia.
We were struggling to remember a recent one from Pittsburgh either.
So, I think that's something that his constituents who watch him closely are picking up on and are frustrated about. And it's why, sort of in the same vein that voters are protesting Republicans right now for not doing town halls, they're lumping Senator Fetterman into that too, because they feel like he's not been very present. And yes, he does have he has missed a lot of votes. I will say, if you look at kind of like the major votes, the ones where he could have decided it, he's been at those, but there still have been more that he's missed than any other senator.
But you got to go vote. Like, that's part of the whole democratic process. It just frustrates me. I mean, I guess to this point, this weekend, Fetterman is supposed to be in Pittsburgh. He's joining Republican Dave McCormick, his fellow senator, to help promote McCormick and his wife's new book. There has been so much talk in the Pittsburgh Reddit and elsewhere about protesting that, at least as of this recording. It's not even clear anymore where the event's going to be because it's gotten so much attention. I mean, I guess if we just zoom out a little bit, like, is this normal? Like, are they buddies now? Do we have any sense of this relationship?
I think they have absolutely presented themselves as two guys who get along, who are from Western Pennsylvania. They, shortly after McCormick was elected, they tweeted about going out to dinner with their wives together.
I mean, the lead photo in one of your stories, Julia, was them hanging out in Fetterman's house over in Braddock across from a steel plant. Like, McCormick is petting Fetterman's dog.
Yes.
The whole thing just feels like weirdly staged.
I think they both want to show that they are bipartisan senators out to help Pennsylvania together. And yeah, that picture was from a joint interview they did. So, yeah, I think this is sort of a continuation of that.
Is that a good strategy? Like, at least from the folks you're talking to, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, is there merit to your two senators getting along and being in lockstep to some extent, regardless of party?
Absolutely. I think, Senator Casey and Senator Toomey disagreed on a lot, but they often talked about how well they worked together on judges, on filling judicial vacancies in the state. And again, I think your average voter, not like your outraged person on Twitter, wants their lawmakers to get along, to hear from each other, to share ideas. But
to bring money home to Pennsylvania.
To bring money home to Pennsylvania. But when the first public event for Senator Fetterman is a ticketed event,
$32 to go pick up a copy of McCormick's new personal growth self-help book. We weren't sure how to classify it.
Yes, it's about mentorship, and they're going to talk about mentorship. But I think that's what's upset people. And in fact, one of the protesters I talked to, or planned protesters, if they can figure out where to protest, said we probably wouldn't even be protesting this if there was a town hall that we could go to, if there was somewhere where we could actually try to get answers, try to express ourselves. And to your question earlier about, who does this benefit? I do think it benefits Senator McCormick, because if you look at Senator Fetterman's approval ratings, it's Republicans that are happy with kind of where he's been going. I don't know that it benefits Senator Fetterman, as his approval ratings have been dropping with Democrats.
Yeah.
And then, when McCormick is up for re-election, that'll be after Trump's second term. It'll be potentially a different political landscape. So, yeah, the more he can come across as a purple senator, even if he's voting in lockstep with Trump, the better for McCormick.
I mean, but by then Fetterman will have faced re-election too, so we're a long way away from that reality.
Yeah, we are.
I mean, how important do you think, Julia, political spouses are in this moment too? I mentioned John's wife, Giselle. She's been such a visible part of his political career. She's founded nonprofits. She's so warm. She's been very likable. She's an immigrant, a former DACA kid. And that story is something that they both used over and over and over across his campaigns. And now he's pushing a different agenda. And she's gone quiet on social media, which people have noticed, at least over here in Pittsburgh. She posted something recently about how much she hates politics, but the comments are turned off. And I mean, some of it, I've talked to folks that are just like, well, you didn't hate politics when it benefited you. But now that it doesn't, or at least there's more scrutiny attached, like, what's going on? Like, I think the question is, like, Pittsburgh at least extended John a lot of grace because of Giselle. And now people are wondering if this is just who they've always, both of them, been behind the scenes.
That's a big question.
It is. I keep seeing it posted in different ways.
Yeah.
Because she's so linked to his brand over here.
Right.
Yeah. And this is going back probably a year now, but when she started volunteering for a fire company near
she's a
where
volunteer
she lives. She's a volunteer firefighter. And I did a profile on her, and I spent some time with her, and her disinterest in politics did seem somewhat genuine to me. She seemed like she had all these, the pantry you mentioned, and
the free store over in Braddock. And I mean, but even their romance, like, she would post about how much they like each other, and this whole series of photos across her social going back like literally a decade, where she cuts off his head because he's so tall, and she wants to include her shoes in the picture. There's none of that stuff anymore.
Giselle has definitely been absent on social media, but I will say the one public appearance that Fetterman has made in Pennsylvania was the farm show, and she accompanied him to that. She's going on Saturday to the McCormick event.
I mean, who can resist a butter sculpture?
True.
Regardless of party lines, yes.
Yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, I mean, some of the immigration policies that he's supported are pretty
conservative. And would not have been helpful to a young Giselle, who was at one point an immigrant to this country.
Yeah, I think the Lake and Riley Act, which he co-sponsored, a lot of members of Congress want people who are in this country legally and who commit a crime for there to be a way to deport them. But it really eliminated a lot of the due process that has typically been afforded to those folks.
I got one last thing for you, Julia. When I was researching this show, I was reminded that Fetterman once sold T-shirts that read "Trump is a jagoff," which I also learned is a Pittsburgh term.
It is. It can be a term of endearment, and it can also be a profanity, depending on who is hurling it and in what context.
Well, in that context, it seems like it was a profanity. This was several years ago when he was lieutenant governor. And now he's not calling him a jackoff, and he's posting on Truth Social, on Trump's social media outlet. Fetterman is posting on there. So, I mean, can we do some psychoanalysis? I know you're not going to be game for this, but do you think Fetterman, if we gave him truth serum, if we were like, dude, do you think Trump is still a jagoff? Am I saying it right?
Yeah,
Megan?
You're doing great.
Okay,
you just gotta do it with confidence. Really embody that Philly spirit.
Got it.
I think he probably still would, but I think he and we didn't really get into this, but he's sort of presented himself as like a pragmatist. Like, Trump's in charge, Republicans are in charge. He keeps telling Democrats to stop panicking and to find a way to exist in this political world that they're in. The problem with that has been, I think, the sort of shrug approach he's taken has really not landed for a lot of Democrats who are panicking, who are worried, who want to see more from the folks they put in office. And yeah, who maybe want to see a little name calling that harkens back to those T-shirts.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for your reporting and coming on both of our shows, Julia. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Julia.
Thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you want to read more from Julia, we'll have links to her work in our show notes. And if you want to go talk to someone, to go to someone's town hall, Connor Lamb is actually having one of his own. It's with the Center County Democratic Committee. That's over in State College. It's from 1 to 3 p.m. also on Saturday. Again, he is not an elected official right now, but if you want to go talk to someone, he's there. We will be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. We'll talk to you soon.
I just got a Fetterman email.
No way.
News: Fetterman leads bipartisan effort to expand VA burial benefits, ensure veterans and their children can be honored together.
Well, I guess we have to retake the whole thing.